First things first, on the eve of his play-in game against the Warriors, LeBron James firing back at the supposed haters on the gram. Does he have a point, though? The Aaron Rodgers situation continues to evolve. Is there any quarterback that could replace the MVP? And the long-awaited, much-anticipated reveal, Chris Broussard here with his official MVP ballot this morning. Good Tuesday morning, everyone. I figured that one out on my own. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright. I'm a big girl. LeVar Arrington in for Brandon this morning and Kevin Wild. Woo, we got a fun show. Nick, I'm sure no matter what Broussard brings for his MVP suggestions, his votes, you guys are going to be on the exact same page. You have been all season.
You know, I might have gotten a sneak preview, and I might be able to tell you, America, Broussard, not as wrong as I expected. Not right, but not as wrong as I expected.
Wow. Well, how's that for a Tuesday morning, like I said earlier? But we got to start with the little Warriors-Lakers. Tomorrow night, the playoffs are upon us. It's the inaugural play-in tournament. Now, for the Lakers, they're facing a red-hot Steph Curry. Western Conference Player of the Month in May and April, Steph Curry. Potential MVP, Steph Curry. But then there's LeBron. Yeah, he's in year 18, and yeah, he's battled injuries this year, but, well, it's LeBron. So, Nick, who is more dangerous for one game, Steph or LeBron?
Oh, you're asking me?
I can't believe this question's being asked.
Yeah,
hold on, this is LeVar. Just give me 1 second.
No, you
because
got it.
I don't know what LeVar is going to say.
He's gonna be
but I can't believe this question's being asked. Because this is why, Wilds, LeBron James, after winning the title last year, after thanking Jeannie Buss and everyone, Rob Pelinka, everyone involved with the Lakers, Anthony Davis, he said, and I want my damn respect. Because questions like this exist in the ether. Who's more dangerous? Oh, I don't know. The guy who's got 28 career 40-point playoff games or the guy who's got 6 of them? Who's more dangerous? The guy who the last time we saw play poorly in an elimination game was 1 decade ago? Or the guy who last time we saw play poorly in an elimination game was 1 postseason ago? Like, who's more dangerous? The guy who you know each and every year what you are getting from him come playoff time, or the guy who one of the few little small blemishes on the resume is you don't quite know exactly what you're getting from him come playoff time? The answer is obviously, clearly, and undeniably LeBron. And, LeVar, I don't know where you stand on this because you and I haven't talked a lot of basketball together, but I'm very interested to find out.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Nick. And listen, when I heard the question, when I read the question, I said to myself, he's in the conversation. We have had this ongoing saga, this ongoing deal of who is the GOAT of GOATs in basketball, and it's always between LeBron and MJ. And I started thinking to myself, well, if it was an MJ question and it was connected to Larry Bird or Magic Johnson or Charles Barkley or Karl Malone, and the list goes on and on, Isaiah Thomas, who are you picking? You're going to go with MJ no matter how great the other guy is. You're going to be like, man, Larry Bird, he's dangerous. He can shoot. It ain't MJ. Magic, he can handle the rock. He can facilitate. He can shoot. He can score. It ain't Magic. It's always and forever going to be MJ, and not Magic Johnson MJ, but Michael Jordan MJ, that you say is the most dangerous guy. So, Nick, I'm with you here. As much as I love Steph Curry and his ability to shoot the ball, for me, it is a no-brainer. It's a hard discussion, even though you love Steph Curry and the way he scores Wilds. I can't go with Steph Curry ever in this conversation.
Okay, but LeVar, we're just talking about danger. We're just talking about one game where something weird happens, a dangerous game. And if we show up on Thursday morning and we're like, wow, one guy went for 60 points, Wow, one guy hit 10 threes. Wow, can you believe that guy scored 30 points in a quarter? You know who we're talking about. If we can show the tail of the tape here, when it comes down to one game, Nick, oh, great, a bell. I did a good job on the sound effects, everybody.
Yeah, hear it, too.
I would say that
Awesome.
Steph is a little bit more dangerous. And, Nick, it's not because it's not a shot at LeBron. LeBron can do more things. So will LeBron have more assists? Yes. Will LeBron have more rebounds? Yes. Will LeBron have more hockey assists and just playmaking and savvy plays? Sure. Can one guy shoot the lights out and single-handedly carry their team to a victory that they're not supposed to have? Yes. So that's why in this one game, I think Steph is more dangerous.
Wilds, are you considering this a playoff game? Like, I know it's the play-in.
Yes.
Are you considering this, though, a play?
Well,
okay. So then what you're asking Steph to do... Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was, but then LeBron is still tweeting. So until we officially go into 0 dark 30, it's not a playoff game. We're sort of like halfway there. Right?
Good one.
That's fair, but I think this has similar stakes of a playoff game. What you're asking Steph to do, that was a very interesting regular season comparison. What you're asking Steph to do is something he's done twice in his entire career. Playoff games where you just explode, where you go for more than 40 points. Steph Curry has done that 2 times. 2 times. Once was his very first playoff run ever in a double overtime game. And playoff games where you explode, go for more than 40 points, LeBron's done it 23 times. So, like, this is, again, and I know we're going to talk about the scoring thing later in the show because LeBron had an Instagram about it, but it's all because LeBron does everything well. We act like he's not tied for 4th for most playoff points per game. Not points overall, obviously he has the most there. Points per game. We act like the last time we saw these 2 guys in a series against each other, who was more dangerous? I don't know, the guy who went for 51 in the first game between them? Like, I understand there is the fear factor of Steph pulling up from 38 feet, but that is not going to be a 48-minute experience. So Wilds, like, if what you're saying is a real possibility, I'm just curious why we haven't seen it more. Steph's played in a lot of playoff games, a lot of big ones.
Yeah.
And he's had more really bad big ones than explosions of 40+.
But don't you think it's a little bit of a role reversal? Like Steph is now old school pre-Kyrie Cleveland LeBron, where it's like, you know what? I'm looking around at this roster. I kind of have to do it myself. And that some of those average games from Steph was a deferring to, or not a deferring, but just more sharing to Clay and KD. And even let Draymond hit a few back-to-back threes. Versus now, he has to carry the weight all by himself, just like LeBron had to do in Cleveland.
Wow.
Yeah, I do think that, but LeVar, and while Steph did a brilliant job with that this year, I think what separates LeBron from every other player, not just active, but ever, is he can be in a playoff setting. Everyone knows he's the only guy you have to worry about, and he still can beat you. Like, Steph has never experienced that. He's never had to deal with that. He's never had to play in a playoff run without Clay. Forget without KD. Obviously, he did that. And I just don't think, I do not think this is a realistic expectation for him to be able to do that against the #1 defense in basketball on Wednesday night, LeVar.
You know, Nick, the problem with Wilds' full screen of statistics is it doesn't show the supporting cast and what LeBron James is able to do. He is the most dynamic basketball player that we have probably seen in the history of our game. That one isn't for debate. And so when you think about making this comparison to be the most dangerous in the game, okay, like, Steph can go for more points. That's fine. But if LeBron James is facilitating the way that LeBron James facilitates and creating space, he has a much better supporting cast than what Steph Curry has, and we've made that very clear.
Right.
So when looking at who's more dangerous, it's not about Steph Curry putting up all of those points, because those points are offset by the points that other guys are able to get. LeBron James's impact goes far beyond just looking at statistical categories. You got to look at what he's doing when he's not handling the ball. The amount of attention. You're not going to put 4 and 5 dudes on Steph Curry to stop Steph Curry. You're going to put one guy on him and hope that he can stay in his face long enough for him not to make the shot, which generally doesn't happen, but it is what it is. With LeBron James, you always have to be rolling and rotating your defenses to be able to deal with LeBron, because LeBron can take you and post you up. LeBron can take you outside and take you off the dribble. LeBron can stay outside and shoot the ball. Just very dynamic in the way that he plays the game, and you can't underestimate that amount of talent and that amount of range with his game.
Well, LeBron and the Lakers have to win 17 games to defend their title, and it starts tomorrow night. And like Wild said, it's only one game.
17.
So anything can happen. One game. 17.
Oh,
so it's only one
that's
game.
Another thing, Wild.
Let's talk about the other
Jordan
team
never won
in
17
LA stealing
games
headlines.
in a playoff run. Never. Look it up.
There goes
true.
He does it first. How about the Clippers? They're getting ready for Luka and the Mavs in round 1. Should Kawhi and company be on upset alert? We'll tell you next. This is First Things First.
In fact, no one's ever won 17 games.
You guys want to play a little game? Let's call it the confidence meter. So here we go. We're going to start with the Bucks and Heat, the 3-6 matchup in the East. Sound familiar? It should. It's a rematch of last season's Eastern Conference Finals. Remember, Miami took care of the Bucks in 5 en route to the actual finals. So, LeVar, the Bucks' confidence level headed into the series with the Miami Heat should be blank.
Composed. 100% composed. They don't need to be worried. I know they beat them last year, and Jimmy Butler is the dude, and I like, you know, what they got going on in Miami, but composed. I feel confident on my confidence meter, making it composed for Giannis. They had Giannis. I mean, come on. He could be the MVP for what it's worth. He's playing some great basketball. He's healthy. If you recall, he was injured last year in the playoffs. So, composed. Don't be too confident, but don't be too worried.
I'm gonna go, LeVar, a stretch further and say, while they shouldn't be stress-free, they should be confident. They should feel even better than composed, because this is not the same Bucks team as last year. They added Drew Holiday. Because Drew is so great defensively and doesn't put up gaudy offensive numbers, I think people underrate him. He has an argument that he should be on the very competitive All-NBA team at the guard spot. They gave up 3 first-round picks for him for a reason. And Giannis, I think, has learned from some of these failures. So I understand why people feel like, oh, the Heat are the worst possible matchup. It should be noted, Wilds, the Bucks had the opportunity to ensure they wouldn't play the Heat in Game 71 of the season. They played Miami. If they had thrown that game against Miami the way the Clippers threw their games this weekend, the Heat would have moved up at the bracket. Instead, they competed and they beat Miami, seemingly because they don't care about the matchup, or they wanted this matchup. That tells me they're confident, Wilds.
That's good. Well, I think they should be a little bit worried because they've yet to see Jimmy Butler. And last year, Jimmy Butler shot over 50% from the field. I know they've got better defense, even though Giannis was Defensive Player of the Year last year. I would be worried about the Jimmy Butler factor at all times, Jenna.
Not mad at that.
Hey, let's head out west now. Another playoff rematch from last season. Wilds looks good as I talk about it. Clippers and Mavs in the 4-5 slot. Still does. You look good today, Wilds. I think that's agreed upon by all. Hey, Clippers beat Dallas in 6 last year in the first round before getting bounced by Denver. LeVar, you also look good, so let me ask you first. The Clippers' confidence level heading into the series with Dallas should be blank.
I mean, after a compliment from you, Jenna, I'm saying that they should feel the same way as me. Confident. That confidence meter should stay on confident. Can't be too composed and saying, you know what, we're the Clippers. Everybody counts them out, calls them the paper clips, as Broussard may say, or the pretenders. There's so many different nicknames used, but you know what? These guys are going to pull it together and look for the duo, the dynamic duo of PG, and obviously Kawhi to do what they need to do. So I say be fairly confident in this one.
I would have said that 96 hours ago, but Wilds, now I have to go worried. And listen, I know I'm a numbers guy, and if I don't go with the numbers, I'm an eye test guy. I typically leave the metaphysical realm to you. But one of my sources told me, you know who's very angry with the Clippers? The basketball gods. They're actually a little ashamed of the Clippers for what they did this week.
Love it.
And I am not one to say that the basketball gods are going to intervene on behalf of my large adult Slovenian son, but I am one to say that a team, Luka, that a team that goes out of its way to get this specific matchup because they want to wait to play the Lakers, maybe you don't ever get the opportunity to play the Lakers because you were worried about what's down the road instead of what's right in front of you. So I think they should be worried, Wilds.
That's funny.
I think that's a great take. And speaking of your large adult Slovenian son, you've done a great job raising him. And what did you tell him about bullies and about being picked on? You know what you need to do? Stand up. And last year, Marcus Morris bullied Luka all over the court, stepping on his ankle, pushing him around, and now he has since apologized. However, I think the Clippers should be a little bit worried because I don't think the, hey, let's bully Luka a little bit and get him off his game is going to work this year. So I'm going to also go worried, Jenna. I think Luka has a big series. Granted, maybe him and KP aren't the best of friends and they kind of explode from within, but I still think that the Mavs have a good shot at beating Clippers, so the Clippers should be quite worried.
Also, Wilds, let me remind you one other thing. Guess what just went back to zero? Luka's tech meter.
Oh, yes, tech.
So he can chirp all he wants. He's free reign. No suspension coming. And given the way the Clippers cheap shotted him and hit him and bullied him last year, I feel like he is going to, early in this series, get in the ref's ear and say, you got to watch for this, you got to watch for that. So I think all that, I'm not saying, we haven't done the picks yet, I'm not saying I'm picking the Mavs to win, but I think they got a real good shot, Jenna.
The Clips are going to clip them.
All right. The NBA regular season in the books. It's time for Nick to hand out some awards. You ran us through the individual awards yesterday. Let's see your all-NBA teams, Nick.
Okay, so we'll start with the third team. Julius Randle, Jimmy Butler, and Rudy Gobert are obvious inclusions. And some would argue that Julius or Jimmy could have been on the second team. The guard spot is so incredibly difficult. I actually consulted with two guys who are on the top two All-NBA teams about my guard spots for the third All-NBA team, and I couldn't get a consensus. Donovan Mitchell, I'm sorry. James Harden, you didn't play enough. Devin Booker, my apologies. And Russ, which Wizard guard was I going to include? I ended up going with Beal. Kyrie with a 50-40-90 season, arguably the best season of his career. He gets in. Now the second team. This is a little more straightforward. Obviously on the second team, Dame and Luka have to be there. LeBron was going to win MVP before he got hurt. Zion is the inclusion that is going to surprise people. Zion, I feel like somehow had an underrated season. I didn't love the coaching with New Orleans. I didn't love the roster construction, not enough shooting. Zion was an unstoppable force. And, of course, Embiid is going to be the second team center. And then the first team, at this point, you know who all the guys are, I would imagine. Steph and CP3 are obvious ones, as are Giannis and Jokic. Kawhi gets in on the first team because you're going to see a lot of ballots where people do funky things. They put Jokic and Embiid on the team because they call one of them a forward even though they're not. They put Luka on the team as a forward even though he's a guard. I went with traditional positional designation, and with that being the case, this has to be your first team this year. So there it is. There's your All-NBA first, second, and third team. Apologies to the third team guards that got left out. There's just too many. There's 8 good options for the final 2 spots, but there it is, the 2021 All-NBA teams as they should be.
All right, we're going to let that simmer. We're going to marinate in all of that information Nick just put out there because we got to talk about this guy right here, the MVP, Aaron Rodgers. Fox Bet Sportsbook has reigning MVP, Mr. Rodgers, with the second best odds to win it again this year. But will he be defending that title in Green Bay? Find out next. This is First Things First. Talk some Packers now. It appears as if Green Bay might be open for quarterback business after all, reportedly demanding a QB in return for Aaron Rodgers in any possible trade package. Remember, they added quarterbacks Blake Bortles and Kurt Benkirk to the mix. We got someone that knows a lot about the situation, Greg Jennings. You spent 7 seasons in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. Hey, still a quarterback. You win or out on there being an acceptable return for the Pack in a Rodgers trade?
Well, I'm out if I'm the Green Bay Packers, but this is obviously getting even more serious than some of us even possibly even thought. At least myself, I knew it was serious, but when it comes to the Packers starting to entertain what they would be willing to accept in return, you know Aaron Rodgers has dug in deep. Without even publicly having said anything. So they, I'm sure, are fully aware of his stance and how firm his stance is and are having to consider looking at other options. Now, yeah, if you're the Packers, I'm out because I don't have any other option. I want Aaron Rodgers to be my guy. You were wrong with Jordan Love. It is evident that you were wrong with Jordan Love because if you were fully in, Rodgers could walk away, and you know that you have a guy that you took in the first round, you moved up to take, and you would have prepared him. But they know he is not ready, and they don't have anyone in sight in their possession that can fill the void that Aaron Rodgers will leave if he is absent of the Green Bay Packers under center. And so for that reason, I'm saying the Green Bay Packers should be out because they should not allow Aaron Rodgers to get anywhere outside of that building unless he retires, period.
So I think that's probably right. They obviously should do everything they can to keep him. But I think to answer this question, you know, am I in or out on the quarterback being an acceptable return? That's the only way it's an acceptable return. So I'm in on that. Like, listen, there are 3 Aaron Rodgers trades that don't totally just ruin the Green Bay Packers. You trade Aaron Rodgers for Lamar Jackson. You trade Aaron Rodgers for Baker Mayfield. You trade Aaron Rodgers for Kyler Murray. Those are the 3 teams that if you really think you have to trade him, you should be calling and saying, listen, you are going to give up youth in order to be the Super Bowl favorite or co-favorite or close to it, which any of those teams I would think would say, well, we love our guy, but with the defending league MVP, we take a giant leap forward and we can win the Super Bowl this year. Where the Packers are screwed is this. If the person who would make those phone calls is Brian Gutekunst. The reason we are in this position is because Brian Gutekunst traded up to get his quarterback in Jordan Love. By making this trade, you would be admitting that that was a massive error because now you are trading for a guy, young quarterback, to leap Jordan Love. So if I am a Packers fan, the only way I can at all stomach an Aaron Rodgers trade is if we get a quarterback back in return, because if you trade for draft picks, the team that ends up you're trading with now has Aaron Rodgers, so those are going to be bad draft picks. So you have to get a quarterback back. But I think for the GM there who would be executing this trade, LeVar, that would be admitting he screwed this up massively. So I feel like there's no wiggle room for the Packers as long as Gutekunst is the man in charge of all of this.
Yeah, listen, I'm out. I'm out on this, and it would have already happened if these speculation things that keep coming out about the relationship were true. It would have happened. So I'm out on, and that's my first reason I'm out. You know, let me put it to you in simple form, people out there watching this amazing show. we all have a friend, and we have that friend that they think they're closer to you than what they really are. And when you're with your other friends that are really, really close to you and you guys know you're close, when you're not around that friend that isn't as close to you, you'll be talking about them. And you don't always say the most flattering things about them, right? You talk trash about them, but they're still your friend. Then some way, somehow, the friend finds out that they're being talked about, right? But then they come to you and they say, were you saying these things about me? And what do we always say? No, I didn't say that about you. Why would I ever say something like that about you? Because you know what? Even though you're not my best of friend, you're my friend. We're okay with still being friends. This Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers situation is a classic. They're friends. They're just not the best of friends. We can still coexist. We can still be cool with one another. And you know why I use the friend analogy in this situation? Because no one is owning what they're saying, Wilds. Not one side will sit there and say, you know what? This person said we're seeking a trade and we have to have a quarterback. It's reports, speculations, no confirmation of somebody saying it. Aaron Rodgers is wanting to go. He's dug in deep, as Greg said. He's in for the long haul to not play for Green Bay. But we haven't heard him say it. They're good friends. They're just not as good of friends as they think they are. They can coexist together. They'll move it forward. I'm out.
Yeah, so sorry my energy's down a little bit, Jenna. I think LeVar was talking about me and him relationship.
I didn't say that about you, Wild. You found out what I said. I didn't say that.
Wild,
Jenna, did you snitch? Come on.
No, but my friend Allie was like, do you think he's talking about me?
No, I think he's talking about me. It's all good. I do agree with you in this respect, LeVar, that the Packers need to come out every morning and just have a press conference to kill all these leaks. If it's not true, then you have to be up there every single morning and be like, hey, here's the thing. We want Aaron Rodgers back. It would be a big public show of support, and just you'd be able to squash any rumors. It's the only way you're going to get Aaron Rodgers back in your good graces. Greg, my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory is this, though, for food for thought. If I'm trading for Aaron Rodgers, I have to include my quarterback. I'm like, and by the way, you got to take Drew Lock. We can't have any. We can't have any competition for the guy. So wherever team Aaron Rodgers, like, you know what, Derek Carr, you got to go. You got to take Derek Carr because I can't have Derek Carr in the same quarterback room. I want to keep Aaron Rodgers as happy as possible.
Yeah, for me, Nick, I'm with you. Yes, the only way this works is if the Green Bay Packers get a quarterback. Now, Wiles, to your point, when you talk about the Green Bay Packers getting out in front of it every single day, it can't just be Matt LaFleur. We all know how Matt LaFleur feels. Correct. We know exactly what will allow his offense to thrive. That's Aaron Rodgers. It has to be Gutekunst and Mark Murphy. I mean, they need to literally stand up every single day, hold hands, just admit that you were wrong. And all of this would probably wash away. But so many people are so stuck on their pride, and I think that's what the Green Bay Packers are doing right now. They're stuck on what they've done. They want to see it through. They want to see if it will work instead of saying, you know what, let's eat some humble pie. This guy has still got way more in the tank than what we thought because of the things that we've done. Let's move forward.
Greg, I got a question for you. Let's keep Greg on the screen for a second because something important happens. I think it's a week from today or a week from yesterday, just coming up in a few days. And that's when the little mini camp OTAs start. Rodgers won't be there, almost assuredly. Jordan Love will be there. If Jordan Love looks terrible, do you think there are Packers players that make sure that is known amongst their media sources as a way, because I'm sure the players want Rodgers back in the fold. So if Jordan Love has a rough camp, I'm not asking if you would do this, but like in your experience, either within the organization or just as a player, if Jordan Love, it's like, oh my God, this guy, because last year he wasn't good enough to be the backup, couldn't beat out Tim Boyle. If he doesn't look like he's taken a massive leap, do you think we find out about that through, team leaks, and that potentially moves this negotiation, if you will, in one direction or the other?
I do think we find out about it because the media is going to be asking, and guys aren't going to just blatantly lie. Now, we will politically correctly answer a question, but for instance, the guy who's going to be most impacted is Devontae Adams. And so if he's on the other end of that and he's not receiving that ball when he needs to, or it's not in the place that he wants it, or it's not to his liking, then eventually he will become irritated with that. And he's going to say things like, you know what, Jordan he's going to be good. I think he's going to be great, but he's not where he needs to be right now at this point. Hopefully we can get Aaron Rodgers back into the building. He's going to start saying things like that. That would let us know this young man isn't ready. But we don't even need to get to that point because Matt LaFleur and everybody else is telling us he's not ready.
And Devontae already has. Didn't he just a few weeks ago say, I got to weigh my future if Aaron Rodgers is not going to be here anymore? So, Greg, thank you. Great insight as always. All right. It is the moment we've all been waiting for. Chris Broussard going to unveil his official NBA MVP ballot. On the other side, do not go anywhere because this is first things first. I don't know why I was
Catch Greg shirtless on
Back here with Chris Broussard, whose official NBA MVP vote has Nick Wright in a perennial state of jealousy. The Greek Freak has won back-to-back MVP awards, but this season has been a roller coaster of a ride for MVP. This year you got 4 or 5 different guys holding the lead at some point, so it is time to put a bow on it. Chris Broussard, walk us through your official NBA regular season MVP ballot.
All right, here we go, Jenna. Nick, you'll be happy. You'll agree with every single pick I have, so just, you can live vicariously through me on this. All right, at number 5, Steph Curry. All right, now I know a lot of people out there are saying, number 5, why is he so low? Folks, this is actually a compliment to how great of a year Steph had. I can't remember the last time I had someone who is an 8th seed on my MVP ballot, but he was that good. But winning matters. All right, as an 8th seed, you're not going to win the MVP or be that high in the rankings, but tremendous year. He silenced all the doubters, all those who said he's not transcendent, all those who said he's overrated. He proved he's the best small player of all time, best shooter of all time. And get this, 7 games this year with 10 or more three-pointers. No other player in NBA history has more than 5 such games in their career. Steph Curry, number 5. At number 4, Joel Embiid. Look, Joel Embiid may have very well been the MVP had he played more games. He missed 21 of 72 games. I'm sorry. And there's no league in which you can be the MVP and miss 30% of the season, okay? He was tremendous, though. He led Philadelphia to the number 1 seed. Gets it done on both ends, obviously. Showed that he is not just one of the best mid-range shooters for a big man. He is one of the best mid-range shooters in the entire NBA. He posts up as well more than any other player in the league, usually getting fouled. So he led the league in free throw percentage. And again, is one of the best defenders in the league. Put himself in the conversation for best player in the world. We'll see what he does in the playoffs. At number 3. Chris Paul, 16 points, 8 assists. Wow. Not eye-popping numbers, but the impact, the leadership, the intangibles, the poise, that was eye-popping. He led Phoenix in his first year from a 10th seed in the West to the 2nd best record in the NBA. This will be the 5th time he should finish in the top 5. First time since 2013. Not bad for a 36-year-old. At number 2. There it is, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the 2-time defending champion. Great numbers once again, great defense once again. Actually added to his game. Now has played more in the mid-post this season, which I like. That could help them in the playoffs. Giannis was tremendous. Didn't win the MVP, though, even though his numbers are big, because his team had the 7th best record in the league. 7th. 3rd in the East. Not the 1st best record in the league like they did the last 2 years when he won it. But great season by Giannis. And the winner of this year's MVP award on my ballot, and I believe he's going to win going away, It'll be like last year where Giannis won in a landslide. Jokic will win in a landslide. 28, 11, 8 assists. That's more than just about every point guard in the league. Has invented the point center position. Led Denver to a 16-8 record without their second best player, Jamal Murray. Third best record in the Western Conference. PER of 31.3. That's #1 in the league. It's the 10th best PER for a season ever. He's only the second center joining Wilt Chamberlain to ever have a player efficiency rating higher than 31. Kareem didn't do it. Shaq didn't do it. Elijah Wan Robinson, none of them. Nikola Jokic, folks, is your MVP. Nick, you can applaud now.
Yeah.
I will applaud. I think Broussard did a great job. And here's the thing. So, I don't, if we have any college students or watching, Broussard did a very smart thing, which is you look at the source material and you're like, oh, this is all exactly right, but I can't plagiarize it, so let me just move some words around. Because that's my ballot, too. It's just all in a different order. So, like, you got the 5 names right, just somehow we actually have all 5 guys in a different spot, but I don't have a big issue with it. I am very happy that you, unlike many of the other ballots that I've seen come public, are giving Chris Paul his respect. I understand that my opinion that Chris Paul's the league MVP is a drastic minority one. I don't expect him to win, obviously. What I've been disappointed by is how many people have these 4 that you have, plus Dame or Luka or Julius Randle on there, and no Chris Paul. And that's no shade to Dame or Luka or Julius Randle or LeBron will probably end up on some ballots as a 4th or 5th. But having Chris Paul in the top 3 makes me happy. And the fact that you didn't hold Giannis's last 2 seasons against him the way a lot of people did, to me makes me happy. Because his numbers say he should also be at the very least in the top 5. Here's my only question for you, Broussard, on this. Now that we know the Nuggets didn't draw the Lakers, I feel like for Jokic to validate this MVP season, they have to, at the very least, beat the Portland Trailblazers in round 1. Vegas has it as a pick'em series. I understand that they don't have Jamal Murray, but even without Jamal Murray, supporting cast to me, Dame and Jokic take him out very similar with the way Michael Porter Jr. is playing. Do you agree with me that for Jokic, it is incumbent upon him to, through hell or high water, at least get out of round 1, since they didn't end up with the Lakers, which would have been a kind of unfair to judge anyone because the Lakers had the odd season?
It'll look bad, as it does for any MVP that goes out in the first year. Of course, we remember Dirk doing it when he won his MVP award. They lost to Golden State in round 1. It looked bad, and the only way he really came back from that was to win that championship in 2011. So it'll look bad, but I don't think it invalidates it because, again, especially the voters, we understand this is a regular season award. It's not about what we project to happen in the playoffs, what happened last year in the playoffs. Obviously, you're human, so sometimes those emotions come in. But for the most part, it is about the regular season. So I don't think it will invalidate Jokic as the legitimate MVP. And I'm going to say this, Nick, because you brought up a week or 2 ago, we talked about it. Would Jokic be the worst MVP since Dave Cowens back in the mid-'70s?
Yeah.
I can't remember, 73, I think.
Yeah,
I think Jokic is better than Steve Nash. He's better than Steve Nash. And I think, obviously, he's better than Derrick Rose because Rose got injured and became a different type of player. And I actually think Jokic is better than Dirk Nowitzki. Now, he's going to have to win a championship to prove it. But I do think he overall is a better player than Dirk Nowitzki. Yes, I said it.
You know,
that's an hour-long radio show.
Whew,
we can do that another time. Go ahead, LeVar.
Wow.
You just really upset me. You just really made me mad.
You were
Go
happy.
Ahead,
You're like a Sour Patch Kid right now, Nick. You were happy and now you're sad.
He knows I'm right.
Hey, I
can't believe you just said that.
I know LeVar's MVP is Rudy Gobert. He loves the Utah Jazz.
I generally give you a hard time, master deflector, qualifier. But you know what here, Chris? I think you got it right, except for one thing. I think Joel Embiid should be in that second slot. Move the rest of them back one slot and replace it with Joel Embiid. And the reason being is, well, they're the #1 seed. They have the #1 record, best record. And when I look at the records in terms of wins and losses, without Joel Embiid, this team is under 500. Did you know that they went 10 wins and 11 losses without him? Which means that if they win games with him and they're the #1 team, they won 39 games and lost 12 games with him. And by the way, when he came back from that 30% of time missing because of the injury, they went 9-1 out of 10 games. I just look at what Joel Embiid's impact has been for this 76ers team and how much of a competitive team they are now with him playing at the level he's playing at. The numbers are too comparable with Jokic, with Giannis, and with Embiid to sit there and say that there's this amazing gap in terms of statistical categories that would justify Embiid just because of injury not being closer to being that MVP this year. So outside of him being in that #2 slot, Wilds, I think I'd be okay with this 5 list that Chris has put together.
I'm okay with it, Broussard. I think you did a wonderful job. The question I have for you is this, Broussard. Do you think Joker is at risk of having a but MVP award? So when you look back at MVPs throughout the years, it's like Karl Malone's like, but that was really Jordan's. We just got tired. And like Barkley, like, but that kind of was Jordan's. Or like, but that should have been Kobe's. Do you think because of the battlefield promotions of guys going down, no Harden, no KD, no LeBron, that this is at risk of being like a but MVP with a condensed season post-pandemic, post-bubble?
Yes, I really do. And especially to Nick's point, if they go out in the first round to Portland, it'll definitely be that. There's no question about it. If Harden had played 60-something games, I think he may have been ahead of Jokic. At least on my ballot, some people would have held the way he left Houston against him. Obviously, Embiid probably would have been ahead of Jokic. I'm actually going to say he definitely would have been ahead of Jokic had he played 62 or more games because Philadelphia had the #1 seed. And, of course, if LeBron had stayed healthy, who knows where that would have been. So this is somewhat a war of attrition. Look, he played all 72 games. He's the only player on this team to play all 72. I'm talking about Jokic. And I believe the only all-star to play all 72. That's valiant in this era of injuries and load management.
That's right. That's right. All those are great points, which is I can't believe I could absorb them after what you said about Dirk Nowitzki. All right, listen, America, Chris Broussard, and Broussard, lucky, I don't talk about people's family, but I'll tell America this. Broussard's wife is a wonderful, well-renowned doctor. I don't know where you're doing the show from. I hope it's home, and I hope she's not on call today. Because if you're Miss Broussard, if you're there, Dr. Broussard, please go check on him because I think Chris had an aneurysm during the show. Dirk Nowitzki has the 6th most points in NBA history and the 7th most All-NBAs in NBA history. He's one of the 20 greatest players of the last 50 years. So let's just take a deep breath on Nikola Jokic is better than him. Yeah, he is. I'll send you the list.
You know why Nick is saying this.
You can't.
You know why
Nick is saying this. Oh, my God, it's not about LeBron.
There's only one reason.
You make everything about LeBron.
Yes, because he beat LeBron.
Most points and the 7th most All-NBAs. He has the 6th most points ever.
Oh, my God. Scores as much as Dirk.
Jenna,
he scores as much as Dirk.
Let's see him do it for another 10 years. Let's do it for another 10 years.
Let us do this on the radio show. We will do this on the radio show that we haven't invented yet because we need to start talking about the playing game tonight because the Nets, they're waiting the winner of Wizards Celtics. Which team do you think they should be rooting for tonight? We'll toss that around next. First things first.
I can't believe you said that.
Back here on First Things First with Chris Broussard. Let's talk some Nets now. So Brooklyn's awaiting their first-round matchup. It's either going to be it is going to be the winner of tonight's play-in game between the Boston Celtics and the Wizards. Broussard, who should the Nets want, Wizards or Celtics?
Look, they're going to beat either of these teams, but if I'm rooting and I'm the Nets, then I'm rooting for Boston. All right, Boston is in free fall. They've lost 5 of their last 6. They've lost 10 of their last 15. Jaylen Brown is out. There's problems there. And Brooklyn swept them. I know the regular season records don't matter that much, but they swept them in 3 games in the regular season. Washington beat Brooklyn in the regular season. Washington is rolling. They won 17 of their last 23. Russell Westbrook is playing some of the best basketball of his career. You know, he's actually, his shot selection is better. His decision-making looks like it's better. You know he'd be hyped up to beat Kevin Durant. And his athleticism, his ferocity, his intensity, it's an X factor. Again, they wouldn't beat Brooklyn, but they could make it tougher than you need it to be in the first round just because Westbrook throws teams off with his abandon that he plays with. And so if I'm the Nets, I definitely would rather see Boston than Washington.
It pains me to have to agree with you, Chris Broussard, but I do agree with you on this. And in fact, maybe they won't beat Brooklyn in a series, but they will stretch it out. They will make it uncomfortable. You think about, you're talking about better shot selections and just the speed that Russell Westbrook is playing at. Well, Bradley Beal has really, really transitioned into being an elite basketball player and leader and face for this Zards team. And let me tell you something. That is a tremendous duo. So, yeah, of course you want to go against the Celtics for all the reasons you just stated. And again, going back to this Washington Wizards team, any team that sees them right now, because of that continuity and that belief, are going to have problems. And think about this. There is a familiarity with these guys going into this series if it is Washington versus Brooklyn. All 3 of these dudes were in OKC together, just as a reminder if anybody out there may have forgot. I know you probably didn't. But Russell Westbrook is not going to come into this game with a lack of knowledge of how you play against KD or James Harden. So to me, that familiarity will make this an even more competitive matchup because there's not going to be any fear. There's going to be great preparation. Listen, I left Washington and went to New York. When I left, I had all the scouting report and inside knowledge of what we needed to do to prepare for the Washington football team going into that game. If you don't think for 2 seconds that you have an intimacy and understanding of your former team and your teammates and even the coaching staff, which this isn't that case here, different team, different coach, but the familiarity that Russell Westbrook brings into this matchup would present problems and issues for this Brooklyn Nets team. You want the Celtics.
Well, and this, it'd be a different story, obviously, if Jaylen Brown wasn't hurt, but he is. And so the Celtics going to be very fortunate just to win either of these play-in games. But Wilds, I have a feeling which direction you're going to lean, given the fact that you named one of your sons after Russell Westbrook. But speaking of those wonderful sons of yours, do you ever play like the old school Nintendo games with them, like Mario, like the old original Mario games that we grew up playing? Do you ever
blow on the cassette?
So I think this is an analogy that will resonate with people. And this is how I view the NBA playoffs. So you start, if you're right now the Sixers and the Nets, you are starting a level with your big, you have the fireball, and you have the little star that makes you invincible, right? And you are trying to get to the final boss, Bowser, with as many of those powers possible. Not just make it there, but to make it there fully formed. And because the Nets are the 2 seed, if they get the Wizards, you know what the Wizards will do in round 1 by taking a game or 2 off them? Now the star's gone. Okay, I still got my firepower, though. And then you play Giannis, and maybe you beat them. But now all of a sudden, he drops you down a level. And now you're just big. You don't have any special powers. And then you get Philly, and maybe you beat them. And if you do, though, now you're just the little guy. You got no extra lives left, and you're up against Bowser in the finals, meaning the Lakers. Meanwhile, the Sixers Wilds, in round 1, are going to sweep whomever they play. They're still going to be invincible. Round 2, now if they get the Knicks, I think the Knicks could take a chunk out of them. But they likely will get the Hawks. They'll be invincible through that, too. They will go into their series against the Nets, if that is who they're playing, or against the Bucks, still with the firepower, big, all of the above. And that's why I think tonight's game oddly matters, Wilds, for Brooklyn's championship hopes. Because you want as little wear and tear on you possible as you get to the teams who can actually beat you. I know it was a convoluted analogy, but I think it made sense.
No, like,
it's not that I think the Wizards have any chance of actually beating Brooklyn in a series, but they have a much better chance of making it a slightly longer series, which makes it more likely the Bucks series is harder. And if Brooklyn's goal is championship or bust, I think they are, I don't know, 4%, 5% more likely to win the title if the Celtics win tonight, who they can dispatch of in 4 games.
Yep. Okay. If that happens, and Jenna, I'm going to ask you here to take out your earpiece, please. Yeah, no, you have to take it out because you're not going to be able to handle it. I'm sorry.
I'm legit gonna take it out. I don't want to hear any Danny Ainge slander. So
you
be
should,
careful.
honestly. It's going to be bad. And Broussard, I will come to you. Let's suppose the Celtics win. I will root for the Celtics. If the Nets dispatch of the Celtics, all of this Danny Ainge fleeced Billy King. Oh, look what we got. This treasure trove of draft picks. They gave us the war chest. Ha, ha, ha. We are back. It's going to be the second coming of great Celtics dynasties. We won a championship. Now I'm a Celtic. 2008. If the Nets get a championship and dispatch of the Celtics in the process, then we have to rewrite NBA history. The idea that Danny Ainge did such a wonderful job fleecing the Nets, because the Nets are back on top of the mountain and the Celtics are somehow back to where they started. They've just been in neutral. Does it cost Danny Ainge's job? I don't know. I don't like calling for guys' jobs. I know he's got a good relationship with everybody in the organization. But there has to be some serious looking at the Celtics organization from top to bottom if you've staked your reputation on fleecing the Nets and then the Nets dispatch you several years later.
Well, Wilds, I don't think it changes the history. He did fleece the Nets. There's no doubt about it. But what it'll show is that he hasn't, since he fleeced the Nets, he hasn't done a good job with it. He has not maximized it. He's not taking advantage of what he did to the Nets, and the Nets came back and resurrected themselves. So I'm going to say this to Nick quickly. I hear what you say, Nick, and that's a good point you made about the Nets and a tough road to the finals. But they need some adversity. You know, they need those three guys together, Harden, Kyrie, and you know what I'm saying? Like, they do need a rough patch here and there to show that they got to get some stops together. Yeah, and I'm not, I hear what you're saying, because there's a point to be made for what you said. But if their first bit of adversity, if the first time they get punched in the mouth is Milwaukee, you know, in Game 6 or Philadelphia,
it could be too late.
It could be, it could be tough. So it might help them if they have a tough series with Washington early on.
Well, then everyone should be rooting for the Wizards tonight, including Danny Ainge, because to Wild's point, if the Celtics lose tonight, but then beat Charlotte or Indiana, and they end up, you know, the 8th seed and playing Philly, that narrative is not going on for 2 weeks. That narrative Wild's talking about is only happening if it's a Celtics-Nets series. So, Jenna, you should be rooting for the Celtics to lose tonight and then win on Thursday. Yep. That way they're in the playoffs. Oh, okay, Jenna can't hear. Don't worry about it. Jenna, we're going to break. Just go ahead and take us to break. Just go ahead and take us to break, Jenna.
No, I just want to make sure.
This is what we do. This means break.
So what I'm hearing, Danny Ainge's resume is still pristine. There's been no Danny Ainge slander whatsoever. Continue doing the job you're doing. Fantastic. I'm going to do all my segments that way. We got to head out west Talk about someone else, something else. How about some Clippers Mavs? Could Knicks, adults, Levine and Son, and the Mavericks actually upset Kawhi and the Clippers? We'll discuss that next. First things first. Danny, back here with Chris Broussard talking LeBron and the free time, the spare time he has despite preparing for tomorrow night's play-in against the Warriors. What's he doing with all that spare time? Hopping on the gram, calling out the haters. Posted this picture noting his very impressive scoring milestone and said, since I was 19 years old, and I'm a pass-first guy. Always been. That's why I'm never mentioned with the greats of scoring, huh? That's perfect, because I'd rather keep it that way. Broussard, what's your reaction to LeBron firing back at his haters?
Well, LeBron does this every so often. Whenever the basketball world seems focused elsewhere, all right? Whenever it feels like, oh, maybe somebody's surpassing LeBron or they're going to better LeBron, he will come out and remind you that I'm the man. And right now, Nikola Jokic is going to be the MVP. There's a lot of focus on Steph Curry. So LeBron had to come out and remind people, I am the man. Remember 2015 when the Cavs just lost Game 5 to the Golden State Warriors? They were down 3-2. Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving was out. It looked like LeBron was going to lose the series, which he did. And he came out in the press conference and said to everybody, I'm the best player in the world. It's just that simple. He wanted to make a statement. Yeah, they might win this series, but no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I am still the best player on the planet. And that's what he was doing with this. Now, is it necessary? No. Does it make him look a tad bit thirsty? Yes. But I'm not mad at LeBron. I got no problem with it. We love Muhammad Ali. One of the reasons we love him is because he was always declaring, I'm the greatest, I'm the best to ever do it, all that. If Ali could do it, I'm fine with LeBron doing it.
Oh, wow.
No problems here.
Okay, so here's the only problem with what Broussard said. LeBron, you're like, oh, it's because the narrative's getting away from him or people are focused on other things. Or it's because the season ended, and once the season ended, this streak stayed intact. StatMuse Instagrammed it, and he reposted it. Because it's like, wow, that's a hell of... If we could show that again, that is a pretty jaw-dropping stat right there. No other player in league history has more than 12 seasons, averaging 25 points per game. LeBron is on his 17th straight, and as he put it, from 19 years old to age 36, every single year he's done that. And I do think, Broussard, the rest of the caption, that's why I'm never mentioned with the greats of scoring, I'm not saying LeBron was talking directly to Chris Broussard, but you're certainly an accomplice in the crime that's being committed against LeBron's scoring resume. Whenever I've heard you do many a show, who are the greatest scorers of all time? Oh, we hear Kevin Durant's name mentioned quite a bit. Of course, we hear the great Michael Jordan, who has an argument. You hear Wilt. LeBron, not included in that, despite the fact he is going to finish with more points than anyone ever, despite the fact that right now he is tied for 4th all-time in points per game in the regular season. I think 5th or 6th all-time in points per game in the playoffs, and 5th or 6th all-time in points per game in the finals. You would think you'd be like, hey, you know who should be considered the greatest scorer ever? The guy who's going to end up scoring more than anyone ever. But it's never, like, if I were to come out and say I think LeBron's the greatest scorer ever, see, exactly. You say, stop it. You act like it's ridiculous.
Because you know it's not true.
Think it.
No, I don't think it's not ridiculous, but you know it's not true. Is he the best scorer ever?
That's what.
Is LeBron the best scorer ever?
He's got as strong as argument as anybody. He's got as strong of an argument as anybody. Right? Look, if I were to say the greatest scorer ever, I would say, let me answer it like this. I think Michael Jordan is the greatest scorer ever. But I think LeBron is the best scorer of his era. I think LeBron was a better scorer than Kobe and a better scorer than Durant. And most people do not agree with that. Most people look at he averages more points per game than both of them. Or Durant and he are exactly tied at 27.0, to be fair. So I think, but nobody agrees with me on that. That's LeBron's point. Is like, because he's so great at the other things, people act like this isn't something he's one of the greatest ever at.
But he's so great. He's so great.
If I might say quickly, just to respond to Nick, I'm with you on a lot of that, Nick. I've said many a time, okay, LeBron does not have the scoring arsenal, the variety of ways to score that Kobe or Kevin Durant had. Yes.
Correct.
But he scores as much or more than them, and he does it just as efficiently or more efficiently, certainly, than Kobe Bryant. So I've said it's kind of like Shaq and David Robinson. Sure, David Robinson had more shots and moves, but Shaq was a better scorer if he just dunked on you every time. I've said the same thing with LeBron. So I'm with you on a lot of that, but he's not the greatest scorer ever, but he is one of the greatest scorers ever. Sure.
You guys are getting lost in the details of what LeBron did. You've gone too deep into the analytical aspects and the basketball purist approach of this conversation. Let's just keep it real, all right? You compared him to Muhammad Ali in doing what he did here. Muhammad Ali declared being the greatest in a much more emphatic way. Not on Twitter, even though they didn't have Twitter back then. But let's just be clear. Muhammad Ali's approach was a little different. I have another comparison for LeBron on this one right here, and I think you'll enjoy it. It goes a little something like this. You need a man with sensitivity. A man like
Ralph
me.
Tresvant.
He went so Ralph Tresvant on him on this one that it is ridiculous, y'all. Come on now. Look, this is just a moment of sensitivity. When you're as great as LeBron James is and has been, you are going to be a part of every greatest conversation that takes place. Just think for 2 seconds, LeBron. It's okay if people don't say you're the greatest at every single thing because everybody knows how dope you are. So in the end, this is just a moment of sensitivity. That's all it is. We could go down the lane of all this other stuff to try to justify it, but every once in a while, when you see somebody as great a competitor and accomplishment as LeBron James, posting a tweet like this to address his haters and detractors and all that stuff, all that is just him having a moment of sensitivity, and he had time. That's all it is, Wilds. You need a man,
agree
not any man, just sensitivity.
We may be sued for that, but
Hey,
Ralph Tresvant. Ralph Tresvant.
Let's keep it that way.
Okay.
From New Edition. Don't be a detractor of me. My singing is amazing.
Wilds, go ahead.
It's amazing.
Broussard, can we put the graphic back up real quick, please, Katang? Broussard, if there was a way to stop LeBron, and there's not, and this is not a slight at LeBron, but don't you just want to force him into jumpers? Isn't that the only playbook, game plan? Like, hey, if we have a chance at beating LeBron, let's keep him from getting to the rim and force him into shooting jumpers. And can that be a mark on someone's resume where, hey, you want them to take jumpers and at the same time they're one of the greatest scorers ever? It doesn't make sense. If he was a better shooter, had a prettier shot perhaps, fine. But the fact that you would allow LeBron to take jump shots kind of kills the idea, kills the narrative that he's one of the great scorers of all time.
No, I hear you. Again, to me, it's like Shaq. There were certain things Shaq couldn't do, right? Shaq wasn't out there shooting jump shots and things like that. He dunked on you. He went inside. It was very simple, the things he did for the most part. And David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, all those guys had more moves. But so what? You couldn't stop Shaq at what he did. And so he was a terrific scorer. It's the same thing with LeBron. I do think one of LeBron's weaknesses is he's never developed like a great pull-up mid-range jump shot. Like stop on a dime, few dribbles, stop on a dime, mid-range jumper. He doesn't have that. So you're right. Teams should try to stop him with that. He doesn't have the arsenal of Durant, of Kobe, of Jordan, of any of those guys, the variety of ways to score. But he does score a ton, and he does it efficiently at a high percentage. And that's what Nick's talking about when you say he's one of the greatest scorers.
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys, I understand that it's important let the actual facts get in the way of what the narrative is. Yeah, teams have said we dare LeBron to shoot jumpers. The team that most famously did that was the San Antonio Spurs, and he ended Game 7 of a finals with a jumper in young Kawhi Leonard's eye to win. That was his second championship. We've had other teams dare LeBron to take jumpers like the Golden State Warriors, the 73-win Warriors, and in part of the fourth quarter comeback in Game 7 of those finals, he got fouled on a three and made all 3 free throws, and then the next time down the court hit a three, which ended up being the last basket made in that game until Kyrie's jump shot. So, like, we can say these things like, no, you're not scared of LeBron's jump shot, even though he shoots, of course, a better percentage from 3 than the late, great Kobe Bryant or than Michael Jordan. Now, Broussard will tell you that's because Jordan didn't try to make threes. He actually was trying to miss them, because if he tried to make them, of course, he would have made them. Nobody's arguing he's as good of a shooter as Kevin Durant. It's just a fact, of course. And nobody's arguing he's as good of a shooter as Kevin Durant. But this is about scoring. And so there's an element of Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders to this. Who was the better scorer? Well, I don't know, the guy with 80 more touchdowns? Yeah, but Barry did it so much prettier. But Barry's runs made you feel, okay, but one guy did it way more for way longer and was way more effective at it. So I do think because there is such a nostalgia attached to Jordan, and Jordan is, I believe, the greatest scorer ever, that people that score more similarly to the way Michael scored get called the best scorers. And that's what LeBron's working against. He's not actually, because Broussard, what do Durant
score
and
like
Kobe have
he's
in
a
common?
mid-range shooter. He's a mid-range shooter, Durant, but he doesn't play like Jordan at all. He doesn't play very much like Jordan.
No, he doesn't play like him. He doesn't play like him, but part of remember when America lost its mind briefly and said Kawhi Leonard was the best player in the world? Why? Oh, my God, he reminds me of Jordan. Oh, my God, look at him. He's scoring like Jordan. Because people aren't actually asking who is the best. They are asking who most evokes the Michael Jordan memories. And LeBron will never do that, in part because he's a far more unselfish and better all-around player, and he can get to the basket easier. So for all those reasons, why would he try? But this is why LeBron is responding to these things. Because it's like, yeah, okay, just 25 points per game since I was 19, but I'm not a scorer. I'm like the 8th best scorer in the league. Okay.
There it is. Take us out to that.
It's going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, thousands, but you know what?
Don't take
Who cares?
Out. We don't have the rights to this song. Jenna, we got to go. It's not allowed.
Nick, they're not recognizing that song, believe me.
Zeroing in on tomorrow night's playing game. Got to talk some Steph and the King. It's next. Who's more dangerous? Broussard, as always, thank you so much.
Broussard.
Back here, first things first, time for stories to start your morning, brought to you by Subway. The inaugural play-in tournament tomorrow night, Warriors-Lakers. For the Lakers, they're facing a red-hot Steph Curry. Western Conference Player of the Month in May and April, Steph Curry. Potential MVP, Steph Curry. But then on the other side, you got LeBron. And yes, he's in year 18, and yes, he's battled injuries this year, but he's still LeBron. So, Nick, let's focus on Steph. Is Curry more likely to have a great game or a dud tomorrow night in the play-in?
Oh, boy. Wilds. I feel like I get boxed into these corners where after supporting Steph for a large portion of the year, now as we get to the penultimate episode of his season, I'm going to end up being called a Steph hater again. But history tells us, in the biggest of big spots, aside from, and this is a big aside from, the 3 straight wins against OKC in 2016, where he was great in all 3 of those games coming back from 3-1 down, that in these types of games, Steph is more likely to have a 6 for 19 than a 15 for 19. That whether it's Game 7 of the finals, that same 2016 year, or Game 6 of the finals in the most recent finals he was in, a game where, and I know they lost Clay, but they were up 2 going into the fourth quarter. And he was bad in the fourth, and he was bad in the game, and they end up losing. As great as Steph is, if it's an either or, is he more likely to go for 40+ or less than 20? The answer, according to his own resume, Wilds, is he's far more likely to go for less than 20 than for 40+. I think we know that is true about him.
Okay, here's the thing, though.
Okay.
Not if Steve Kerr refuses to allow it to happen. So, Nick, if you were in an NBA game, I don't think you would get any buckets. I think you would go over. But certainly, if I was like, you know what, gosh darn it, I'm going to get Nick a bucket. Nick, all we're going to do is scheme to get you open, and we're going to feed you and feed you and feed you. Eventually, you would get a bucket, and that's the exact same game plan, LeVar, that Steve Kerr should run. So, yeah, on Sunday, he had 22 threes. Guess what you're shooting now? Shoot 25. You had 36 shot attempts. Guess what? Now you're shooting 40. I don't think the plan is to let Andrew Wiggins cook. I know we did that one game. No, it's got to be Steph's time. So I think Steve Kerr's got to ride or die with Steph, have an incandescent performance. I think he could go for over 50. In fact, LeVar, I think that's the only way they can win.
You know, the streets were talking, and I heard, like you used this example of Nick Wright getting the ball and feeding him. Well, I heard he got the ball and he tried to dunk it and it didn't end well. But that's just the story that's out on the streets. I don't know. I do my homework, Nick. Hey, but listen.
That's right. That's true story. Tried to LeVar leap over a defender, and I ended up with a broken forearm. That happened.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
I'm not the best athlete on the panel. Probably the worst. Go ahead.
Well, but you attempted, which meant you were an athlete. But here's the thing, right? I'm gonna attempt to take and borrow your tinfoil hat for a second, Wilds, and I'm gonna say this. LeBron James has been championing who as the MVP of the league, guys? Say it loud. Say it with me.
Steph Curry.
Well, Steph Curry.
Yes. Steph Curry.
Wow. And then he comes out and he has a tweet about why y'all hating on me being a scorer, this, that, and the other. Wow. What does this shape up to be? A matchup where if LeBron James D's up, who? Steph Curry. And he's been known to do it. He has been known to do it. So if he has a dominant performance and he ends up taking over Steph Curry duties, and Steph Curry has a dud of a game, well, what does that mean for LeBron James' conversation points on his Twitter feed?
Sure.
I think he's going to have a dud of a game, and I think it's going to be by design because LeBron James has set us all up for the great LeBron, the King James return. He's going to drop that sword on him, and it's going to be talked about.
It's also, to be fair to Steph, he is the only guy on that team you have to worry about. And the Lakers, from start to finish of this season, have been the #1 defense in basketball. So it is, this is going to be a Herculean task for Steph, which actually, Wilds, brings me to a take that I was on the radio in the Bay Area yesterday on Damon Bruce's show. And I've gone on with him for years and years, always kind of poking at Warrior fans. And I was messing with him a bit yesterday, and I said, honestly, after how hard the Warriors have had to play for the last 2 weeks, how grueling that game against Memphis was, I think they should rest Steph and Draymond Wednesday so they're ready to go Friday, because you can get in the playoffs by winning Wednesday or Friday. And I was mostly joking. But he brought up an interesting point that I think is tied to yours, and I want to bounce it off you, which is that, you know how Steph typically really gets unleashed in the third quarter? That's the whole Warriors run, third quarter is when they've crushed people. Yep. This year, we saw it in the Memphis game. He went crazy in the third quarter. The point was, that should be the Warriors' game plan in the first quarter, possibly the second quarter as well. So they know immediately whether or not they can win this game, and if not, pull the ripcord. Because here's the worst case scenario for the Warriors. they lose a very close game where Steph plays 44 minutes. Then they are at risk of losing on Friday. Like right now, I don't think Memphis is set up to beat them, even though Memphis played them tough Sunday. I don't think the Spurs are set up to beat them. So the question I would have for you, Wilds, is if it looks like Steph is having a dud, if it looks like it's not going the Warriors' way, you said what Steve Kerr should do is, scheme the whole thing, take 50 shots. Yep. At what point would you say, you know what? We got to wave the white flag on this one because we have to get into the postseason. Never? Even you could lose twice.
Never.
Okay.
No, so be it. We know that the Warriors are here for a short time, not a long time. They're here for a good time. And they're just going to try to win this game. I don't think they don't have championship aspirations. If they miss the play-in, if they miss the playoffs, like, so be it. They can point to a few things. Wiseman's hurt. Clay was hurt. It wasn't our year anyways. They're just here to try to make some noise. And oddly, Nick, and this is totally strange, sometimes the colder Steph is for the first half of the game, the more I lean in to the second half, just because I think things will even out. So no matter how far down they are, I still would be like watching it. And I don't think, just for the showmanship angle of it, I don't think Steve Kerr would strategically try to wave the white flag. I think there's too much on the line, just pride-wise, for them to sort of lay down and say, all right, let's move on to Memphis or San Antonio.
Steph Curry is going to come in hot. You best believe that. He is going to come into this game, and he's going to touch down, and he's going to be hot. So, to me, the only thing I can see being the most plausible approach to this situation is LeBron showing that he can slow down the guy that he is saying should be the MVP of the league. So to me, that makes for an amazing game to watch, regardless of if it's a stud or dud performance. I think it just makes for must-see TV, Nick.
And I think that's right, and I think they will certainly do what the Cavs did in those finals pre-KD, which is target Steph on the defensive end in the pick and roll. Wilds, to your point, the best example of that was when KD, not when he tore his Achilles, but when he had the calf injury in the series against Houston in 2019, that game 6 against Houston, in Houston, against Harden, Steph had 0 first-half points and finished the game with 33, and Golden State won, and Kerr said it might have been his favorite win of the entire era. Now, obviously, that's not a game you're going to punt. It's in a playoff series, but that was a game where he went 0 first half, Jenna, 33 second half, and won him the game.
All right, before we leave, I want to do a quick take your pick before we go. Play-in tournament action starts tonight with Wizards and Celtics. Winner gets the Nets in round 1. LeVar, who wins tonight, Wizards or Celtics? Take your pick.
The Zards. They're going to do it. The Wizards.
I think Russ has a big game. I'm going Wizards too.
Yeah, I think Russ and Beal are going to be excellent tonight. I think the Celtics are limping towards the finish line, and I think the Celtics would prefer the 8 than the 7 anyway, so it's a clean sweep. We all got the Wizards.
No, we don't all got the Wizards. I think the Celtics might actually win tonight. We don't all have the Wizards. We'll see you tomorrow.